So my name's Alex Lewis, and I was an average guy back in 2013. My partner and I, we were running a pub and a restaurant, and I was a stay-at-home dad to my little boy Sam, who was about 3 at the time. And then in November 2013, I caught a common cold, a bit of man flu, and I moaned about it, and moaned and moaned and moaned, and Lucy kept saying, "Get over it. It's a cold. You'll be fine." And I was like, "No, I feel really, really bad." And after about 2 weeks, it got worse and worse. And then I woke up one night and I went to the loo, and I went to the loo and there was blood in my urine, and that freaked me out. And then I went back to bed. I said, "Look, this is something really not quite right. There's something really wrong here." And she said, "Look, let's go back to bed." And then the following morning, if it's still feeling really rough, we'll call the doctor to find out what's going on. So the following day was a Sunday, and she'd gone to open up one of our restaurants. And I woke up and I was semi-conscious at best. My skin was turning purple. I couldn't put my clothes on. I couldn't function. I was completely out of it. And I remember hearing a knock at the back door. So I remember going downstairs, and I opened the back door, and Lucy was in front of me with my stepdad. And her face was just like, "Oh my God, what is going on there?" And they called the paramedics there, and luckily for us, there was an ambulance had just gone past in our village and was going back to its station, and it sort of swung by and came to see me. And the paramedics came through the back door, took one look at me, and I was dispatched into the back of the ambulance and then rushed into Winchester Intensive Care Unit, which was about 30 minutes away from where we lived. And the paramedics said, "Look, we've got about 20 minutes to get him to ICU, otherwise we think he's going to die." So all the shortcuts and all the speeding got us to where we needed to be at the right time.
Wow.
I remember arriving at Winchester Intensive Care Unit. I remember the double doors kind of bursting open, and there's me on this trolley being wheeled through. And I remember seeing all these guys in scrubs and loads and loads of people sort of scurrying around me. Mm-hmm. And it kind of freaked me out. And about 20 minutes later, I was on life support. And 2 days later, they said that, they told Lucy and my mum I had a 3% chance of survival. And obviously Lucy and my mum said, "Look, how can that be? 3 or 4 days ago, he had a cold, a bit of flu. What the hell is it? What's he got?" Yeah. And at that point, they couldn't tell us the answer. And in the end, it transpired to be a very rare strep A infection, which for whatever reason, I just flared up more than most. We all carry strep in our throats. It's more, people are more aware of it in the US because of strep throat. Mm-hmm. In the UK, we don't have that. So, when they were saying, "Oh, he's got strep throat," we were like, "We don't even know what that is." My parents and Lucy were like, "We don't even know what do you mean? What are you on about?" And so I spent 5-6 days in life support, and it got to the point where they were going to turn off the machine as they felt like I wasn't going to come around. Mm-hmm. And they told Lucy and my mum to prepare to say their final goodbyes. That was and the following. That was the evening. And then the following day, I woke from the coma because the intensive care anaesthetist that was working there had tried something that had been trialled in the US. And he thought, "Do you know what? There's nothing to lose. This guy's going to die. So what do we do? I might as well try something." And luckily for us, he did. And I woke that day and I sort of came round thinking, what's been going on? Where I am, looking up at the hospital ceiling, and they explained that I had I caught strep A, toxic shock syndrome, necrotizing fasciitis, all these words that I'd never heard of. I had no idea what they were talking about. And all they kept saying is, "You're really, really ill. You're really, really poorly, really ill." And I remember Lucy at one point, she was shouting at us saying, "But what does that mean? You're not actually telling us what that means. I know he's unwell." And after about 7 or 8 days in Winchester, they transferred me to another hospital, not too far from where we live. And it was a plastics specialist unit. And I arrived there and that's when I was told that I would have my left arm amputated. They thought they could save my feet. They couldn't. I lost both legs above the knee. They tried to save my right arm with this sort of miracle cure of moving my entire left shoulder into my right arm. They butterflied my existing arm and just cleared out all the dead skin and tissue and wrapped my shoulder around my arm and then used skin from my back to cover it.
Wow.
Phenomenal surgery. And it was a world first. And, for a few months I lived with this thing that was my arm. It didn't look like my arm, but it was still attached to me. But sadly, 6 months later, I still had strep in my bone, which I didn't realise. And I broke my arm severely just by rolling over in bed one night. Snapped my arm clean in half, and then the following day, we were told, we can try and pin it, we can try and save it, but the likelihood of that working is pretty slim. And I said, look, just amputate, just cut it off. I've lost all three. If it means I could keep a joint, and I keep, I knew about prosthesis at that point, and I knew I could kind of fashion a life with what was available to us then. Mm-hmm. So we elected to amputate that arm at that point, and then I had more facial surgery where I had the remainder of my right shoulder and rib cage moved onto my face. Again, it's never been done before globally. So I had all these amazing surgeries being carried out on me. I was a guinea pig for 7 or 8 months. Wow. It was the most incredible time. Amazing time.
Amazing time. I feel like a lot of people would say the worst time. What makes you say amazing?
Well, when I look back on it, and in the UK, the NHS is paid for, so we all pay our taxes, and it funds this healthcare system. And sure, there's a lot of negativity about it, and it's in debt and everything. Well, negative comments that are made about it. But when we needed it the most, it was there. I arrived. They had no idea that I was going to survive, and the people that I met have become lifelong friends. My plastic surgeon, Miss Crick, Alice Crick, in my eyes, she's bigger than God. In my eyes, she's unbelievable, and she was the one that kind of instilled in me that there was going to be a life post amputation, whether it be one arm, 2 legs, the other arm. There was going to be a life with all the facial surgery. She could see right at the very beginning what the end result was going to be like. And I questioned all the time. I said, how did you know that? There's no way you could have known that these pioneering surgeries which you were carrying out were going to work. And she was just adamant. And she said, look, you were presented to me at the right time, and it was a win-win for both of us. I needed you to try these surgeries out, and then that could have helped so many other people moving forward. Yeah. And you needed me to be the one willing to take the risk to undertake surgery. And all that team that worked around her, the nurses and all the healthcare assistants, they were just phenomenal. And they made my family welcome. They made my son welcome. My son would wheel around the ward in a chair, and all the nurses knew him. In the end, he would actually go around the entire ward, chat to the patients. He was as much a part of the hospital unit as I was. And seeing my parents, even my Labrador came to see me one Christmas Day.
Wow!
But they just went above and beyond to give me the best chance possible of moving forward, and it has shaped my life since then. Right. When I left the hospital unit, I vowed that I was going to make sure that everything that I do now is testament to their work. So, because then, when I left that hospital unit, they just carried on regardless. I left and I had to fashion a life for myself. But these guys, they went to bed that night, came back to work the following day, and that was that. It's a normal day in the life. And for me, it's about justifying what they do. I want them to know that the life that I lead now is in most part down to them and down to the care that I received at that point.
I remember you also talking about at one point you're like, wait, I have to live for Lucy and my son.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. Um, I was desperate that I wanted to be alive for my son. I wanted to see him grow up. I wanted to see him grow old,
Hmm.
um, and I wanted to see Lucy again. And I spoke about it last time, but we had a donation. We set up the Alex Lewis Trust very early on, and we had a donation coming from Coldplay, and it read out on the bank statement. And it's like, oh my God, Coldplay donated. Um, and then lo and behold, Chris Martin emailed a few days afterwards, said, look, you received my donation. I've read about you. He was over in the States, in New York, I think. We're touring, read about you. We think it's amazing what you're going through, um, and how you've handled it and how you seem to be dealing with it. He said it's unbelievable. He said I can't imagine, myself doing it that way, and it was really, really complimentary. And he said, if there's one bit of advice I give to you, you should read Frankel's Man's Search for Meaning. And I thought, I'm not a big reader, but I had more facial surgery coming up, so I bought the book on the iPad, and I took it with me in hospital. And I remember I had surgery, and it was like a 21-hour surgical technique, so it went on for like ever. I was out for like 2 days straight. I remember waking up thinking, oh, I'm in agony. I've got days and days of rehab to go through. Um, so I thought, you know what, I'll start reading the book in little snippets. And I got to the point, and he said to me, there'll be somewhere in the book that really resonates with what we're going through. And about 2/3 of the way through, there was a comment in there, and it wasn't by Frankel, but it was from another psychologist, and it said, once you work out the why, you'll endure anyhow. And it just kind of lit a light bulb in my head. And I realised then that my why are Lucy and Sam, and the how is what I had then, missing limbs, recovering from surgery, and knowing that I had another sort of 30 or 40 hours of surgeries to go. But that was then, now the why has grown. I think at the beginning it was Lucy and Sam. Now it's much bigger than that. It's lots of people that are in a similar situation to me, people in the likes of in India, China, South Africa, who don't have wheelchairs, who can't have access to prosthesis. All these problems that we face, that I go through on a daily basis. I think the amount of money that we have to spend in any situation, as soon as you're labelled disabled or impaired, the cost of everything goes up tenfold. And it's kind of just spurred me on to, now we work with a lot of universities on research into prosthesis design, bioengineering, biomechatronics, all sorts of weird, wonderful terms I don't understand. But it means that we get to not only be right at the coalface of this new design that comes through, but we get to trial it. But then we can also take it elsewhere. And I think, for me now, we're on a project where we've just set up a wheelchair manufacturing facility in Ethiopia. And we raised £50,000 here in the UK. And we set up a viable business in Ethiopia that will make between 200 and 300 chairs a year. The Ethiopian government have now vowed to put in the funding for 2 more facilities on our business model, which in 2 or 3 years' time we're making up to 2,000 chairs in Ethiopia.
Wow.
And now we're looking at Tanzania, Jordan, all over. And we go to Mongolia next year. We go to the Arctic the year after that. We've got students making solar-powered battery-assisted hand cycles to test and to take over the technology to places like Ethiopia where they need to trial it. These guys can't afford to pay for diesel, they can't afford fuel. So how else do they get around? If you haven't got horses, you can't afford horses. The technology has such a far-reaching aspect to it.
Yeah.
And I'm very lucky that I get to be not only part of the driving force behind it with the other guys, but I get to trial it myself and use it and just feel like I'm giving back. Maybe I wouldn't call it a calling, but maybe I was always destined to do something better than just live a normal life.
Yeah. And what I say is whether or not you were meant to from the start, you find that purpose within it, and that's I think another thing from Man's Search for Meaning, because that I read that in my early days of recovery and everything, and I'm like, he says life begs the question of us, what is your purpose? Not like we don't ask life what's our purpose, like happen to me. It's like we seek the purpose, we find the purpose in
Yeah,
whatever situation we're in, whether that's the Holocaust or a spinal cord injury or just like a serious disease. Like you find that purpose, and you've definitely found
yeah.
that.
And you know, for you and I, we couldn't do anything about the situations, the hands that we were dealt. It was completely out of our control.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think I personally feel I'm quite fortunate with that. We're quite fortunate with that. That I mean, I've got nobody to blame. Obviously, it's different for you, but it's just time, and you know, any other day I might have gone to the doctor 10 days prior to falling ill. Any other day you might have left 3 minutes later than what you did to get on the bike.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And we end up in these situations, and it's not just us that are going through it. It's our parents, it's our families, our friends, our network. You know, all these guys. I wouldn't be where I am now without that network of people behind me. You know, if I likened it many years ago when I did a skydive for the first time, and I remember free falling, and I likened it to when I first fell ill. I was in free fall. I had that very quiet, serene. Whoa, what's going on? This is amazing. And then you wake up, and then you know when the parachute is deployed. You know, right at the beginning, there wasn't a parachute. We just kept going and going and going, and we didn't know when it was going to stop. Whereas now, I look above me, and if I am on this, still in this free fall, I've got hundreds of thousands of people above me that have made sure that my parachute is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and wider and stronger. And that's the network of people.
Yeah.
You know, those guys stop you from, you know, free falling into something, into you know, despair.
Yeah.
All these things that you know, mental health is obviously a huge thing at the moment globally.
Yeah.
But you know, I never ever struggled with it. I had enough people around me, I think, to just get me through it, and I'll come out the side of it thinking, wow, this is it now. I'm going to live every single day to the fullest. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy what I eat, enjoy what I drink, enjoy who I meet. You know, we're very lucky to be here.
That's huge. Well, man, it's incredible talking to you again. And yeah, I really do want to come out and see you next time I'm in the UK, for sure.
Yeah. As soon as you fly into London, just give me a shout.
Will do.
We'll have a good night out in town.
Yes! Oh my gosh.